Hi. Today we're going to be discussing, can you pray wearing pajamas? Pajamas. There's a halacha brought down in Shulchan Aruch in 19 to 23. Hi. Today we're going to be discussing, are you allowed to pray, are you allowed to daven wearing pajamas? There's a halacha brought down in 7 Study Aleph, in chapter 91, that a person, when he's davening, since we're standing in front of God, we're speaking to God, we're speaking to the King of Kings, one has to be dressed accordingly. Hikoin likras Elokecha Yisrael, make yourself prepared to be dressed accordingly when you're speaking to God, just as you would speak to someone respectable or king. And therefore the halacha says that any way which you would not feel respectable and you wouldn't feel comfortable about going out in public, certainly it's not appropriate clothing to pray in front of Hashem. And so Mishnah Berurah codifies over there the halacha that one shouldn't pray in pajamas, because one doesn't go on the street in pajamas, one doesn't go in public in pajamas. It's certainly not respectable to daven to Hashem. And therefore, if a person forgot, for example, to daven Mariv and he's wearing pajamas, he should put on respectable clothing and then daven, and not in his pajamas. However, there are exceptions. A sick person or an elderly person. Number one, we already find different rules, and the more lenient for a person who's sick. For example, in the halachas that one has to stand up in certain parts of prayer, of davening, a sick person is not included and he's not obligated to. Furthermore, the very fact that that's the clothing of a sick person, he's lying in bed in pajamas, and if a visitor would come, he would be that way too. He wouldn't get dressed. So therefore it's not a sign of disrespect when davening to Hashem in pajamas, because that's his normal mode of dress. And therefore, as long as a sick person or elderly person is wearing pajamas which are clean, they aren't soiled or dirty, he may daven that way. A woman in a robe, can she daven? Well, if it's a robe which she would feel comfortable to go outside the house in it too, then it's permitted to. If it's resembling pajamas and she wouldn't, the same halach would apply. Now, even though we said that a person who's sick, for example, who spends the day in pajamas, can pray in pajamas, but one has to be aware that pajamas are sometimes loose or open in different parts, which could cause and lead to an additional problem. Brought down in Shulchan Aruch in Siman Ayin Daled 74, which is the halacha of V'hoya ma'achanecha kadosh v'lo yireh b'cha evas davar. You shouldn't see your nakedness. It's forbidden to pray in the presence of someone else's nakedness, someone who's not properly covered, or not only someone else's nakedness, even one's own nakedness. And even if one is wearing clothing, if the clothing is not, is like a robe, and beneath the clothing there's no barrier between the lave, the heart, and the eva, the genitals, that is forbidden to pray that way. So since pajamas could get loose and be open, one has to be careful about that. So, just to summarize the halacha, a person who's sick, if his pajamas are clean, he's allowed to daven in pajamas. But he should make sure that his nakedness is covered, and if his pajamas are open, his genitals should be covered. Furthermore, if he's wearing like a long robe and beneath there he has no clothing, he should place a separation like a belt, or at least wrap his hands, separate between his heart and his eva, his lower part of his body. Then, in that circumstance, since he's sick, and that's the way he always dresses, it's not forbidden to daven, to pray in pajamas. But for a normal person, as you pointed out, any clothing which is not fitting to walk in public,